Hello mate, my name's Gareth and welcome to Arena Wrestling. Today we're going to be exploring what comes next for Hangman Adam Page in his story now that he's AEW World Champion. What the next chapter of his story will look like, how his championship reign might play out, opponents he could face, who he might eventually lose his title against, and where that will leave him as a character to move forward beyond that. Adam Page defeating Kenny Omega to win the AEW World Championship at Full Gear was not just any title change, it was the culmination of a 2-year story where Hangman battled his own demons to realise the potential that, deep down, he always knew he had. It is without doubt one of the best stories ever told in wrestling, if not the best, and the consensus from most people is that the much anticipated crowning moment did not disappoint. However, that isn't the end of Hangman's story. It's the end of that particular chapter within Hangman's arc, but he's won the World Championship and now we must look forwards. This next chapter isn't as straightforward as one might think also. It's a widely held opinion amongst wrestling fans that heels generally make better champions than babyfaces. The reason for this is quite simple really. Audiences will engage more with a compelling story than with a compelling character. Characters drive relatability, which make us invest, but stories drive engagement. This is why we often see fans turn on babyfaces, particularly in WWE, because once they've reached the summit, the company doesn't know what to do with them. The struggle that the fans once resonated with no longer exists, and no matter how compelling the character is, without a story, audiences will lose interest. This is why most stories we have of successful people are about their rise, their downfall, or about both. So, the question for Hangman's next chapter is the same as it is for every babyface champion. How do you make the championship reign part of a journey in which Hangman as a character can go through a change? Because that's what story is. It's a journey of change within a character. The first question to determine the next chapter of Hangman's arc is to ask what kind of champion Hangman will be. Will he be a fighting champion, defending regularly against all comers like Cody Rhodes? Will he be more of an emotional champion, overcoming personal grudges or fighting those whom he respects like Jon Moxley? Or will he be an underdog champion, fighting from underneath, overcoming massive obstacles like Darby Allin? This is a key distinction because how you tell this part of Hangman's story dictates his character moving forward long term, and it also determines how we as the fans will emotionally connect to Hangman as the champion. I think, or at least I hope, the Hangman as World Champion will be a mix of the things I just mentioned. I hope he'll be a fighting champion and take on all comers, defending more regularly than Kenny Omega did, for example. I hope the majority of his challengers will either be someone Hangman has a grudge to settle with, or against someone he respects. And I hope for the challengers who aren't there to settle a grudge, that they'll provide a significant obstacle that Hangman needs to overcome. The one thing babyface champions need for every match is conflict to drive engagement from the audience and allow us to truly invest in the match, not just relying on how over the wrestler is. Moxley achieved this in most of his matches, and it is for this reason why it's praised by many as one of the greatest babyface championship reigns ever. We obviously know that Hangman's first challenger will be Bryan Danielson. However, there are a host of opponents in AEW who are available over the coming months who present different challenges to Hangman as champion. Malachi Black is a challenger who naturally poses a massive threat because the way he wrestles is so intense and difficult to overcome. He is capable of dominating matches in a way that isn't too dissimilar to Brock Lesnar, but instead of brute power, he uses meticulously timed strikes combined with a great martial arts background. The potential for the feud is great also, as Malachi is somewhat of a bully and can use Dark Order members as a way to get to Hangman, kind of how he did with Cody Rhodes and the Nightmare family. For an opponent at Battle of the Belts or a Dynamite special, Malachi Black would be a great challenger for Hangman. It seems that most people thought that Jon Moxley was destined to win the Eliminator tournament at Full Gear before he took time off for personal reasons. Now, because of Moxley's treatment, I won't speculate on a date for his return, but I will say that Hangman vs Moxley is a match that AEW have hinted at a fair amount in recent history. If they can find a way to deliver this match, I think it would be awesome. Chris Jericho is the guy who beat Hangman in the first ever AEW Championship match, and that was the instigation for Hangman's 2-year arc. There is a story to tell between those two, if AEW want to tell it, of Hangman correcting that loss. I'm far from Jericho's biggest fan, and the match doesn't excite me from an in-ring perspective, but Hangman settling that score and overcoming another mental hurdle in a respectful match wouldn't be the worst thing. Miro already has cause to want to fight Hangman and take his title, and he also provides obvious physical hurdles. Ricky Starks also has a believable motive to fight Hangman because it is Page who injured him and derailed his career. He could also become a generational feud for Hangman. Andrade would also provide something totally different and fresh for Hangman. Miro, Starks and Andrade would be great opponents that could easily slot in for a TV title defense as and when they're needed between pay-per-views. The next question we must ask is who defeats Hangman for the title, because that will be the end of this next chapter. Who defeats Hangman and how they defeat him will determine how Hangman moves forward without his championship. Will everything come crashing down as he reaches a new low? Will he lose the championship to a familiar foe? Or perhaps a mixture of both of those. MJF is the obvious answer, which most people are going to. It makes sense also. MJF is ready for that spotlight, and Hangman losing to the most despised member of the AEW roster would certainly be a new low for him, and AEW as a whole. If this were to main event Double or Nothing, 3 years after Hangman eliminated MJF to win the first Casino Battle Royale, then that would certainly be a fitting ending for Hangman that leaves him with a generational rival to move forward with over the coming years. My only issue with this is it just feels a little bit too obvious. I would almost rather MJF was a challenger who Hangman overcomes in Revolution's main event. This is, of course, personal preference. But if you want a challenger who provides Hangman with a genuine obstacle to overcome and one who feels like they could actually win, then MJF is the perfect candidate to extract as much drama out of a match as possible as a challenger for Hangman. Also, whilst MJF is ready for the world title, he doesn't necessarily need it. I would happily see him defeat Sammy Guevara for the TNT Championship and then reign as TNT Champion for a good period of time. MJF, at only 25 years old, has all the time in the world to become world champion. It doesn't need to be rushed, but equally, it would definitely be a good option also. There would also be scope for a non-title match between Wardlow and Hangman, where the two could show respect for each other after the match. This could play into Hangman vs MJF for the championship, as MJF wonders whether he can truly trust Wardlow. That could even lead to Wardlow turning on MJF after MJF grows frustrated with Wardlow's refusal to get involved. Either way, I think Hangman being the first guy to pin MJF clean in the middle of the ring and leave MJF with no excuses would be a great thing. Long term also, this could light a fuse for MJF. That's a win that he needs to put right down the line, with Hangman being the one guy who he can't seem to prove he's better than. Pac is another popular choice I see spoken about a lot online. The idea most have for Pac is that he would win the title in the UK in June or maybe early July. Pac was Hangman's first true rival in AEW, so it would be a fitting opponent from a storytelling perspective to take the title off of Hangman. He would also be a great champion in his own right. He's undeniably one of the best wrestlers in the world and deserves a major world title run as one of the most underutilised wrestlers of his generation. Pac is certainly an exciting proposition and one that I subjectively love. A year ago I'd have said that this was my dream scenario, but I think I've thought of something that excites me personally a little bit more. Adam Cole is the man that I would have to defeat Hangman to become the next AEW World Champion. I know the first thing a lot of people will say is that he's not been in AEW long enough, but I'm not sure that's an issue, especially not for Adam Cole, who is an established star as it is. AEW don't need to take their time with him at all. What convinces me most that Adam Cole is the right pick is that he's the one person worse than MJF to defeat Hangman and become the next champion. Hangman doesn't have to go through another devastating loss and hit rock bottom again, that's not what I'm saying. However, Hangman suffering a devastating loss, being okay with it and moving on, would just go to show how much he's grown as a character, and it also gives him a score to settle down the line. If one of Hangman's goals moving forward is to reconcile in some way with the Young Bucks, then Adam Cole defeating Hangman with the Bucks in Adam Cole's corner is probably the worst thing you can imagine for Adam Page. There's a history to draw on from Adam Cole versus Hangman, and there's a lot of parallels between the two men. Hangman has always felt a step behind Cole until he became AEW champion, so even if Cole isn't the next champion, I think him being a major challenger for Hangman is an obvious pick for this reason. Beyond Hangman's AEW World Championship reign, we could see him coming to terms with Kenny Omega. That's something that's been teased on being the Elite since Hangman defeated Kenny. What exactly happens in the Elite saga moving forward is anyone's guess. You could fancy book a million different things. What happens between the Hangman and the Young Bucks? How might Kevin Steen play into things? Do we see the introduction of Kota Ibushi? What role does Hangman play in this all? The questions and possibilities could go on forever. What we know for now is that Hangman is AEW World Champion, and how his title reign plays out and ends will give us a better idea for what the next chapter is beyond this one.
I wish you
What would you like to see from Hangman's championship reign? Who would you like to see him face over this run? And who do you think should defeat him for the title? Where will that leave him to move forward with his character arc longer term? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Remember to leave a like if you enjoyed the video and subscribe as I've got loads more AEW content coming soon. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you later, mate.